happens to a civilization when it forgets the laws that God embedded in the human soul? Lean in with me, because the Torah is about to explain the very crisis you and I are watching unfold across the world. There are two moral earthquakes that are shaking our generation. Earthquake number one: the West is redefining reality. Today, not really just today, but for the past number of years, there are certain ideas that humanity always held as being obvious, and today they're suddenly controversial. What is a man? What is a woman? What is family? What is sexuality? What is truth? And what is a boundary? We're a civilization trying to update the operating system of human nature as if it were an app on a phone. Confidence has replaced clarity. Emotion has replaced truth, and desire has replaced conscience. And society is wobbling under the weight of its own self-invention. Earthquake number two, we can call this the global return of brutality. This second earthquake is not theoretical, it's violent. Gaza, Ukraine, Iran's proxies, terror networks, drug cartels, civilians that are used as shields, mass kidnappings, executions that are live streamed. And suddenly the world debates, is murder evil? Or does it depend on the narrative? So here's the thing. A civilization that cannot identify evil cannot protect the moment. And that's where the Torah speaks directly to our moment. Reaching back to Parshat Toldot, there's a verse that quietly explains why God blesses Abraham. This is Genesis 26, verse 5. Because Abraham listened to my voice and kept my safeguards, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. 5 categories of law. It's like a legal stack. It's almost bureaucratic until Rashi opens it for us. Rashi asks, what does the verse mean when it says, my commandments? We can ask this question because, again, my voice, my safeguards, my commandments, my statutes, my laws. How many expressions does the Torah need to use to say the same thing, to address the same concept? So anytime we see what looks like repetition in the Torah, we know that there is a deeper idea that's encoded in that verse. Rashi asks, what's meant by my commandments, mitzvotai? And he answers that those refer to the matters that, even if they had not been written, a human being would have known that they were fitting to be commanded. Meaning that God is referring to the laws you should have known. Let that sink in for a second. Laws that you should have known. Why? Because he installed the knowing inside of you. The Talmud identifies these laws. Remember that there were 5 expressions: idolatry, sexual immorality, murder, theft, and blasphemy. This is in the Gemara in Yuma, page 67b. They're not Jewish rules. These are the structural beams of civilization. And you can hear Sheva Mitzvot echoed here. They're universal because God wrote them not only in the Torah, but in the human soul. And the Rambam crystallizes it, our favorite halacha in Rambam. The Noahide laws are binding because they were reaffirmed and commanded at Sinai. Meaning that this world is bound to the 7 laws, both because they were commanded externally at Sinai and because they were endowed internally through conscience. Now, what this does is it resolves the paradox. Universal morality transmitted through a particular people, but for the sake of all people. That's Judaism. It's not just an ism. It's a brit, it's a covenant. So now, watch the lateral shift. Let's just step sideways for a second. We think morality is cultural, or psychological, or political, or negotiable. But what if we were to look at morality as physics? Not metaphorical physics, but spiritual physics. For example, gravity doesn't care if you believe in it. If you step off a roof, you'll fall. The same with these spiritual physics. If you erase the concept of male and female, you will get identity confusion. If you redefine the family, you'll get a type of societal fragmentation. If you celebrate desire over boundaries, you get an inner disintegration. If you justify murder, you'll get global violence. If you weaponize ideology, you'll get terror. And if you desacralize God, you get existential collapse. These aren't sins in the modern sense, but they are violations of the structure of reality itself. And that's why Rashi says these laws didn't need to be written. Abraham didn't exactly need a Torah to understand these things, because God didn't invent morality as an afterthought. In his revelations, you see what he has already embedded. So now let's go deeper. Conscience. Conscience is not a social instinct. Conscience is a divine gift. It's a divine endowment. That's your moral North Star that's inside of you. It's not cultural conditioning. It's God's warning system, which is encoded into the soul. And that's why Chazal say, Ein onshin ela im ken mazhirn. God does not punish without warning. Because we have to ask, the question always comes up, where do we see the Noahide laws in the Torah? So you have to understand how to look for them. Chazal give you a perfect way of doing that. But we can see from the fact that humanity was judged and most of it was destroyed, leaving only one family to care for the entire world's inhabitants, the creatures of the world, that there was a punishment here. But if there was a punishment, we have this basic principle: God does not punish without warning. That means that humanity was already aware of what its obligations were before that flood came. So what is the warning for humanity before Sinai? Conscience. If God placed the moral compass inside of us, then humanity is warned from the moment it becomes human. And that's why even before Sinai, murder, theft, sexual exploitation, idolatry are punishable. Not because we were commanded, although humanity was commanded, but because we were equipped. Conscience is almost like divine hardware. The choice as to listen to the conscience, that's human software. And this leads to the deepest question. What is the point of reward and punishment, which is a basic principle of Torah faith? What's the point of it if we're wired this way? The answer is very, very, very delicate, but it's also very elegant. The answer is because conscience is a capacity. It's not a script. God gives us the awareness, but you choose the response. Reward exists because you can drown out the conscience. You can lie to it. You can override it. You can betray it. You can deafen yourself. People spend their whole lives turning the volume down on conscience. Or you can follow it. You can listen to it. Punishment exists because you knew, and you recognized, and you were warned, you were capable, and you still chose against the good. God doesn't judge your wiring. He judges what we do with the wiring. The Rabbi writes in Hilchot Tshuva that a person can be as righteous as Moshe, as Moses, or as wicked as Yerovam. These are the two poles that we're being given, like the most righteous person we can imagine, Moshe Rabbeinu, or the most wicked, the one who causes the entire nation to worship idolatry. What he's saying here is such a pillar of what it means to believe in Hashem and believe in Torah and mitzvot. Absolute, complete, and utter free will. You have a choice of what kind of person you want to become. You want to become a tzaddik? You can. You want to become a rasha, an evil person? You also can. No one's tilted this way or that way. It's all free choice. So again, a person can be as righteous as Moshe or as wicked as Yerovam, not because their wiring is different, but because their choices are. God gave us conscience. We give courage. A wonderful commentary on Torah from Harav Baruch Halevi Epstein. It's called the Torah Tamima. He quotes one of our sages, Rava, saying that Abraham kept the entire Torah before it was given at Sinai. Not by law code, not by ritual, not by prophecy, but because Abraham refused to silence the divine endowment inside of him. He didn't ask, is this religious? He asked, is this true? He didn't say, is this allowed? He was following what he sensed to be the spiritual physics of the world. And he is the prototype Noahide. He's a man whose conscience was awake, who refused moral relativism and aligned himself with the very architecture of creation. He didn't need tablets. The truth was alive inside of him. He had the tablets in essence within him. And we could always go into a conversation of what does that even mean, that Abraham and all the patriarchs and matriarchs kept the entire Torah. That's a discussion for another time. Suffice it to say that the Torah existed in an oral form before it existed in a written form. And this is the proof. How do we apply this to our world? Well, now we can understand our crisis. Crisis number one, the West rewrites conscience. The West rewrites the ideas of male and female and family and boundaries and truth and that which is sacred. But these aren't social constructs, they're givens. They were there before the societies. The more society overrides its conscience, the more it loses its footing. And we can all feel that kind of directionless that's going on all around us. Crisis number two, global war ignores conscience. The terror movements violate life and dignity, family, truth, and the very image of God. Their ideology is idolatry. Their brutality is moral collapse, which has become manifest. And this is what happens when conscience is severed from culture. This is the battle of our time. Civilization versus anti-civilization. The spiritual physics that Hashem embedded in this universe that he created versus chaos. And conscience versus violence. And the Torah mapped this out already 3,500 years ago. So my Noahide friends, where are you in this story? Well, here's your identity. A Noahide is not a spectator. A Noahide is a conscience keeper. Your conscience isn't psychological. It's theological. It's an echo of God's voice inside of your moral intuition. And it's not a metaphor. It's the halacha. Your mission is not ritual, it's integrity. Your greatness is not in adopting Jewish practices, but in honoring the moral laws that God placed in the soul of mankind and reaffirmed at Sinai. B'nai Noach stand for clarity while the world worships confusion. They stand for conscience when nations override theirs. See, the whole world can be unified if we unify it through values. That's what the B'nai Noach stand for. They stand for truth when ideology declares war on it. And this is your dignity. You walk with Abraham before there was Torah, because you listen to the Torah that God places within you. So here's the heart of the matter, my friends. God never judges a person for what they could not have known. But he absolutely judges for betraying the conscience that he himself placed inside of them. That's your moral antenna. And in a generation that's drowning in moral fog, God is raising people, B'nai Israel, B'nai Noach, whose conscience still works. People who say that life is sacred, that boundaries matter, that family matters, that truth matters, that God matters, that morality is not optional. So may the God of Abraham bless you with courage to heed your conscience, clarity to see through the fog, strength to resist ideological pressures, humility to align with the truth, and love for the divine image in yourselves and in others. Because when the world forgets the laws that are written into our conscience, God sends Abraham and those who walk in his footsteps to remind it. And that includes you.